We did it. We've teamed up, and together we've created something special. We are the Idaho Underground Sports Network, and we're changing the game. We're covering Idaho high school sports in a way that you haven't seen before. Together, we'll be providing weekly breakdowns and recaps while helping uncover Idaho's top talents at a deeper level. Trust us, you want to be part of this. Boise Sports Talk, EBC Media, and the Game Time Guru bring you Gem Session. Let's get to work. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Gem Session, brought to you by the Idaho Underground Sports Network. We want to remind everybody to follow us on Instagram. However, we're also on Twitter. We want to make sure you guys know that. Thanks to this debacle that Zuckerberg and the whole Facebook world had this week, we realized we're not on all the platforms, and Twitter's the next step for us. But understand that we are only a three-man show trying to hold down the fort with just the three of us currently. And so, yes, our main platform is Instagram at Idaho Underground Sports, as you see here on the bottom. But we are also on Twitter. So go give us a follow and share it with your friends and family so they can follow us as well, as we get the kids the exposure that they deserve. We want you guys to follow us on all of our platforms. But, of course, like I said before, Instagram is our main one. But if Facebook decides to go down again, we will be on Twitter as well. And we're working on things to have for the future. Again, right now, we're doing this all on our own time, our own dime. And we're looking for anybody who's willing to sponsor us and wants to get in with this movement that we're making. But understand that we are just trying to work things little by little, step by step. So we hear the suggestions that you guys are making. We're working our way to that point. We appreciate everybody. So we're going to get into this week's episode, as we get into the final, part of the season. Some big games coming up. The next couple of weeks are going to be huge for the SIC. And we first want to start with a recap of what happened this last week that had some impact in the SIC. Over at Meridian High School, Meridian was coming off a tough loss to Eagle, and they were coming in against Skyview. And they were hyped up, but, Meridian's not 100% healthy. And at this point in the season, not a lot of teams are. They get banged up in the game of football. But Skyview versus Meridian, I don't think it was necessarily the game that everybody thought it was going to be. Now, a couple of us thought that. I think AJ had mentioned, even Ty had mentioned, it was going to be closer than what people thought. But there were a lot of people that were surprised with Skyview's ability to stick with Meridian, and what a finish this was over at Meridian High School. So I'm going to start with AJ, who was live on site with Ty the other night on Friday, catching this game. And I want to get a recap from you, AJ, on that entire game and what you saw with Skyview and Meridian and what you took away from the game.
Man, it was a really good game. We had talked about previously that I said, Ty, it may come down to where we look at each other in the fourth quarter and say, hey, we got a game. And sure enough, I made sure I looked at him halfway through the fourth when it was, a 2-point game. It goes 9-7. And I looked over at him. I said, here we go. Let's see what happens. Skyview scored first. They did a good job moving the ball early. And then for the rest of the game, Meridian's defense, shout out to them, just completely clamped up. It was really impressive. I think they held Fafita to 26 yards rushing. He was the top rusher in the league, and I still think he may be the top overall player in the SIC. So they did a really good job locking in on that. They picked Cuthbert off 3 times in the first half after I think the touchdown happened after the first one, but shout out to the Ninja Turtles. But Skyview's toughness and their front seven was extremely impressive. Spoke to someone, a part of the Meridian staff after the game, and they were like, I think that may be the best defensive front that we faced, and they are extremely well coached up front. And I believe their D-line coach used to coach at C of I, if I'm not mistaken. But a really good football game, not necessarily surprised. Meridian didn't seem like they were necessarily ready to go. Zeke Martinez was our player of the game. He was putting the ball on target the entire game. I think he was 19 for 28, which is decently efficient. And he had 5 or 6 drops. I mean, drops, like in the breadbasket, just drops. So he was really impressive. I hear people saying, oh man, Malakai this, Malakai that. Listen, Zeke Martinez, Ty said it before, he's not much of a drop-off, if at all. There is a difference in leadership there, and we see that a little bit. Zeke Martinez is balling out, though. and he was impressive to watch. Tyson Acree, good to see him back. He had a big touchdown. Meridian needs to clean up their special teams. Ty and I were talking about that. I'm sure Ty may touch on that, but it was a great football game. It's got me excited for what Skyview's got coming up this week. But Skyview's a team that can beat one of these top teams if they play well. And I think the loss of Aiden Martinez is still showing itself. I think that may be a different outcome if Aiden Martinez is on the field. But anyway, really good football game. Both these teams are very good. I think they're top 5, 6 in the league for sure. My
question that comes up, and I think there's a lot of people out there thinking the same thing. We touched base on Zeke and on Malakai. Through the course of the season, it's like, oh, Zeke's doing well. Like, what do we do? The quarterback situation, even when Malakai's healthy, do we keep the momentum rolling? But as we get closer to state, I want to ask Ty this question. As we get closer to the state tournament, they're going to get into the playoffs. What is the best decision for Meridian, assuming Malakai is healthy at that time? What would be the best decision for this Meridian football team going into the playoffs if they truly want to make a run at it?
Malakai is the answer to that question. Ultimately, he's their guy, and if he's healthy, he needs to be in the ball game. We've touched on it several times now. They're not falling off because of Zeke's play. They're doing well, but Malakai is their guy, senior. It's his time to shine, his time to go make something happen for his team. They need him and Thacker back. Offensively, definitely. I don't know if they had cold hands. Beginning of fall, beginning of October. Got the cold hands coming in the game, but receivers were dropping passes left and right. Got it cleaned up at the end of the game. Each of them kind of made up for their first half mistakes. Ultimately, that's what kind of carried them to a victory in this one. Both defensive fronts really contained the run well. We had our 2 top rushers in the league facing off against each other with Cross and Fafita. I think they had a combined 80 yards total. So really, really good job by both defensive fronts and the linebackers. Tristan Martinez, want to give a special shout out to him. His presence on the field, I want to call him, he's like the honey badger out there. That dude he's small, but boy, oh boy, he takes on everybody, including Fafita, who he had several solo tackles, which you look at the size difference in the way that Fafita runs. You'd think that he'd be able to get through those arm tackles, but shout out Tristan Martinez. He's been taking care of business since he returned from injury. Nathan Reynolds did his thing as well, Ryan Quarter, and then, you touched on the Ninja Turtles, Ashton Gardner, Landon Eason, help me out here, Bryce Norwood, and who's our 4th one?
I think Judah, but I believe Judah.
Yeah, that's right. Judah's been out. So shout out to those guys, though. They've all been making plays. We just said it. Meridian's got to get it cleaned up a little bit offensively, and I think that once they get their senior leaders back, that'll be the difference maker for them. Defensively, they look great again, allowed 7 points, and, potentially could have had another touchdown at the end of the game that they allowed. We're not going to call out officials, but questionable ending to that game, in my opinion. Really terrific drive and a lot of composure by Skyview on that last drive to march down the field. They almost punched it in. But yeah, unfortunately, the calls were not in their favor.
We don't necessarily have to call out the officials, but as someone like myself, right, I was catching the feed. I was over at Eagle High, and I was catching the feed from you guys, and I was just curious, what was the call? All it was a phantom flag is what I remember coming across the story. But what was the call in the game?
It was I think a legal man downfield.
Yeah.
What they called. But what I don't understand about that is it was number 5, Tyrick Pennington, who's their number 1 receiver. So I'm just confused as to how he would have been in a position that made him ineligible to be downfield. And I think there was a holding call prior to that marched him back, another 10 yards. I didn't see that as well, but
a false start. There was a false start call.
A false start and a hold.
Yeah, it was tough because
a lot of the Meridian guys, they gave a shout out to Skyview at the end of the game. They escaped with a win. I'm going to say that they escaped with one. They earned it, but I mean, by no means did they dominate any facet of that game.
No.
Yeah, so I'm curious. I'm going to have to go back and watch that now, just so anybody else who's listening to this might be in the same position as I was. Like, I want to watch that. Maybe their receiver lined up on the line or lined up off the line and was ineligible based on the formation that they lined up. So, yeah, that happens sometimes, and especially at the high school level when the receivers don't realize how many men can actually be on the line of scrimmage, and they might be off with a step or two, and that might have made them ineligible, or it could have been a missed call. I would like to see that because, yeah, that was interesting. They scored a touchdown on it, got called back. That's why I was like, whoa, it was really, really close. For those who didn't catch that one, you missed out on Ty and AJ's coverage of it because that's how I was getting all my coverage while I was at the Eagle game, which brings me to that. I want to talk briefly about this Eagle Timberline game. And the reason I want to talk about it is because, one, I want to shout out the Eagle fan base. I went over to – that's my first time being at Eagles football stadium in over a decade. And I will say this. I was super impressed with their fan base. The fan base showed out. The Staying Gang was there. Everybody was there. Obviously, it's homecoming, so it's a little bit, hyped up for that reason. But they showed out, and I was really impressed with it. The feel of Eagle is this community feel that I think that we lose with the Meridian school sometimes. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I know each one of them, Rocky's got a crazy good fan base. Meridian's got a crazy good fan base. Mountain View's got a crazy good fan base. But because you have 3 schools and now Owyhee in that Meridian area, kind of lose the community feel that it used to be like all wrapped around one school. Eagle still has their school in their city, and it kind of felt like that community feel to it. Massive shout out to them. Now, as far as the game is concerned, that was a tale of 2 halves. It was one of those situations, and I'll use the words of an NBA basketball player here. Don't play with your food, just eat kind of thing. It felt like Eagle was just playing with their food at the beginning. Second half, they just decided to eat. Shout out to the offensive line over at Eagle. Those boys pushed. There was like 9 straight runs to start the second half because the pass game was just not getting it done in the first half. That's just the reality of it. Benson was having a little bit hard time trying to find his rhythm. The team was a little sloppy. But they were moving the ball on the ground. Second half, they come out, 9 straight runs, get them all the way down to the goal line, and then they capped it off with a pass to Ian Duarte, which that was kind of like the connection. When they did throw, that was the connection all night. Shout out to Eagle. That second half, they decided, okay, we're done playing with our food. We're just going to eat, and they did it. And it was won in the trenches. So from my perspective, I watched that game throughout the entire course. It was just body punch after body punch after body punch, and then Timberline just eventually wore down. At the very end of that game, last, quarter and a half, they were just worn out. The trench mob on both sides of the ball for Eagle got the job done. So I want to give a shout out to them. I
love that you brought up Eagles offensive line. That was kind of one of their biggest question marks coming into the season. A little bit undersized unit, but really athletic group of guys who were multi-sport athletes. So I love the recognition for them. They've been taking care of business all year.
Yeah, I'm super impressed with them. When it came down to it, your quarterback, your guy who's leading the team, maybe the offense is just not meshing well. Comes down to those guys up front who don't get a lot of recognition, and they showed up. They said, "Okay, we'll put the team on our back. We're going to do this thing, get down and dirty, and we'll get it done." And they did. So Eagle, we'll talk about this later today on the show, but they're coming into another tough game coming up. But I was really impressed with how they responded, and the second half adjustments that they made in that game. So shout out to Eagle High School as they win yet another one. And they make their mark in the SIC. Now, before we get to our power rankings, which is the fun part of this, did I hear a cat? Did I hear Finn? Is Finn in there?
No, that actually wasn't him. I think that was a small child.
Oh.
That was one of my small children.
Oh, you'll probably hear one of my small children, too, because he's getting ready for a nap. I can't wait. But hopefully Ty's cat makes an appearance, and hopefully we get to chat with him. And I'm going to put that as, like, a social media blip one of these days. Now, this whole entire show, we're talking about gems, right? We're talking about the hidden gems. And this week we had some guys that are balling out. And as we get further on in the season, you're starting to see some really good play from a lot of people. But we want to highlight 2 specifically today on the show. The first of whom, the reason I'm excited about highlighting this guy, he's a quarterback over at Rocky. It was a slower start to the season, trying to find the groove. This team has a lot of expectations, like high expectations on their shoulders. And as a quarterback of that unit, defending state champions, you're coming in as your first year as the starter. There's a lot of expectations for you. And I feel like he's done a great job as he's continued to improve in this balanced attack. So, Ty, I'd love to see your first breakdown of Tegan Sweaney as we give him a shout out for his performance this last week.
Definitely. Well, first thing I want to say, I love his stat line right now. 1,234 yards, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm weird like that. I appreciate little things. So I love that. He has just been completely efficient and composed back there. I know he's class of 2023, so he's a junior right now. There was some question marks about him, his arm strength coming in. he doesn't need to throw the ball 50 yards downfield. He's got so many weapons and can spread the field. Lucchini, he's got Mason back. He's got Jackson Mason, who really has kind of been underutilized. Big body receiver, getting looks from U of I. Who else they got? Luke Hanchett, Art Williams, Hunter Stecker. This balanced offense is scary. And his offensive line, Jackson Fulmer, to note, he's getting big-time looks from K-State right now. They're giving him a ton of time, and he's just back there slinging it and having fun with it. I think he's had 4 touchdowns in each of the last 2 games. I think they only played their starters in the first half of this last matchup against Hawaii, 44-0 at halftime. So they went in, took care of business, would have put up even bigger numbers this week had the starters played the full half. But 250 yards, 4 touchdowns for Sweaney this week. And like Shane said, continues to climb the charts as one of the best quarterbacks in the SIC. I might even boldly say one of the best in the state. Just like I said, very, very efficient and impressed with his composure so far at this point in the season.
His stat line, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Some might look at him compared to some of the other guys here in the conference, but like you had mentioned, this offense is a balanced attack. And it's led by him being efficient. So when he does get the opportunity to throw the ball, it's not just like he's sitting back there throwing 50 times a game, but when he does get the opportunity to throw the ball, he needs to be efficient. He needs to be accurate. And that's what he's doing. He's starting to become more confident. And you can tell, like Rocky, we talked about this as a unit, all 3 of us. Rocky's becoming like they're that under the radar team right now. There's not a ton of talk for some reason, just because of that loss to Mountain View early in the season. This team is still rolling, doing their thing. They've responded, and I think that's exactly where they want to be. It's like a perfect spot for them because, like, okay, at the beginning of the season, we had everything, the weight of the world on our shoulders. Everybody's looking at us right now. The talk's going to Eagle, Meridian, heck, Skyview's getting talk, Mountain View, of course. Like, okay, cool. We'll just keep doing our thing, and that's what makes them super, super scary as we get close to playoff time, especially with Sweaney doing his thing. So shout out to Tegan. He's doing his thing over at Rocky, one of this week's hidden gems. Now, we got to give another shout out on the defensive side of the ball to our next guy. Okay. I'm going to give this dude some credit. This guy's everywhere. His stat line's crazy. I'm going to have AJ break it down, but this dude is a big, big reason his team is having the success that they're having. Obviously it's a team game, but this guy is everywhere. And, he's not just making tackles. He's getting his hands on the ball too. And so that's what I want AJ to talk about. And, let's give a little shout out to Brayden Garrison over here.
Yeah, man. I mean, after watching him the first game of the season, I was really excited about this kid. Before our show started, we were kind of talking about him. I think he's front runner for defensive player of the year at this point. There's some other guys in there as well, but I think 5 tackles, 2 picks. One was a pick 6. He's the leader, not just I think on the defense, but on that team. His teammates have great things to say about him. Like you said, he's just all over the place. He's whenever a play needs to be made. I remember I think it was against Eagle, where he laid out and tipped a pass. Donovan Jones was wide open for a catch and score towards the end of the game, and he read the play, laid out, tapped the ball, and at that point, I was like, this kid in coverage when he's blitzing, he's got hands. I mean, he can really do it all. I think you can put the kid at any position and he's going to be successful because his IQ is so next level. He's definitely a college football player. I don't know at what level, but IQ wise, he's elite, I will say. Defensively, I think he's higher of an IQ than anybody else I've watched this year. So Brayden Garrison, if he continues to stay healthy and do his thing, Mountain View is going to be relevant. I am going to talk about something, Ty, you just said about Rocky and how they've been under the radar. I think the best thing that's going to end up happening for Rocky is that loss. I don't know if I'm going to pick Rocky to lose again this year. Mountain View, I think we'll see Rocky again in that district championship game is my prediction right now. And Brayden Garrison's going to have to be the best player on the field again, I think, for Mountain View to knock off Rocky for a second time this year. But he's the type of kid that can do it. And so I'm excited to see what happens there, if that's the matchup we get. But whoever Mountain View is playing, if Garrison is on his game, they're going to be very difficult to beat, especially with that offensive line and Quintez Evans on the other side. So shout out Brayden Garrison for Player of the Week honors.
Man, Garrison's over there doing his thing, and I love as we get closer to this, like week 9, which we will, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We will be giving a breakdown of what happens week 9. I know there's a lot of questions about week 9, what's going on with the playoff, how do the seedings work. We will get all that. Shout out to Jason Moore for helping educate us on the process and whatnot. But we will get you guys the details of that if you guys are interested. But if they meet up, which I think as well they will, man, that's going to be that's going to be a good one. I think it'll be a much more, I don't know. I think it'll be a very competitive game. That's what I'll leave it at when those two meet up again, whenever it may be. Now, we do also want to give a shout out. See, we have so many awesome, this is the whole reason we're doing this show and this entire network is so that we can highlight some of the hidden gems. So even though we didn't mention this guy's name as far as this week's player of the week, hidden gems, he still deserves a shout out, and that's Capitals Max Clark. He continues to sling the rock, and I would love for us to give him a little bit of love. I know we've talked about him before. I've talked about his leadership. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does this next week to see when he's going to be facing some solid competition we just talked about. So I'm curious to see how he does. But I mean, I love the guy. He's put up 1,800 yards passed, and Max Clark continues to do his thing. And I'll just let if you got anything to mention to highlight Max Clark, although he's not this week's hidden gem for us, he still continues to consistently put up numbers. So what stands out to you about Max Clark?
Yeah, I mean, so he's leading the league with 21 passing touchdowns, but I think he's up to 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns on the season as well. He had 2 this week. Jacob Olsen was out, I believe, so Clark took up some of the rushing for the Eagles this week. Found the end zone 6 times. This is, I believe, the second time he's had a 6-touchdown performance this season. So putting up crazy numbers. I mean, his weapons, when fully healthy, are going to make him look good each and every week. But just another one of those quarterbacks, efficient. I like when he stands back there and is a little bit more composed. He likes to scramble out and run a little bit, but when he just sits back there and lets it rip, I think that makes them a little bit more balanced. They've actually got a decent offensive line. They got guys playing both ways, kind of wears them down. But when he's got time back there, I mean, his weapons are just next level. So really fun stuff from Capital. Max Clark doing his thing with 25-plus touchdowns on the season already.
Shout out Max Clark. Keep doing your thing, man. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that matchup here in just a little bit. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about our power rankings. And speaking of his team, Capital, we had a little bit of a discussion, if you will, between the three of us this week on this. So I hope everybody who's listening to this understands that we are fans and we look at things objectively, but like we don't always agree 100%. So we have these conversations. That's what makes it fun with all three of us, because we're very passionate about the teams that we're following, the players that we're following. And so, yeah, we all have our opinions on it. So we're going to go over the power rankings here in just a second, starting off with Mountain View. Obviously, they're the team to beat right now. So Mountain View has done nothing to show us that they don't deserve that number 1 spot. And Rocky is right there behind them in that second. Eagle continues to show that they're improving. So we have them at number 3, and I'll put the rankings here at the bottom. So 1, 2, 3 is Mountain View, Rocky, and Eagle. Now, people are wondering about Eagle's run game, what's going to happen. But like I just said, I mean, even Roy Hull comes in there and just was putting his foot down and getting up the field. I mean, he was chunking 5, 6, 7 yards of carry and a couple breakout carries too, where he gets downfield. That line is doing their thing. So the running back by committee at Eagle right now, filling in the gap for some injuries, is doing work. Whether or not that goes deep into the playoffs, I can't tell you yet. But right now, it's working because their offensive line is putting in the work. So whoever carries the ball back there is getting the yards they deserve because they're doing the right thing. So Eagles at number 3. We have Meridian still at number 4 as they won. They squeaked one out against Skyview. As Ty said, they escaped with a victory. But here's where it gets interesting, and I'm going to pop this here at the bottom. We've got Capital at number 5. This is where the discussion was, and I know this is going to be one of those things. It goes Capital, Skyview at the 5-6 mark.
To be clear, I thought that we switched that around.
We did switch that around, and that's what we're here to talk about, Shane. So get on your game, Guru.
What are we talking about? I thought, okay.
Hey, we decided Skyview was ahead of Capital, and that's where the –
See, there you go. I put it right here. I thought I asked right before the show. See, we're all up until we recorded. So here's this. Let's do it. I'm going to change it. I asked before the show for
I
clarification.
know.
Yeah, and we said that we switched it. You guys both said we switched. You both said it.
So I thought we had Skyview ahead of Capital. That's what
Okay, so we'll
I
throw
thought.
this Skyview ahead of Capital. See, this is why we're having this discussion. Skyview ahead of Capital after 2 losses. And I'm going to let Ty, because I was one who said, no, I've got Capital ahead of Skyview until they prove otherwise, right? But Ty has some valid points that he mentioned to us when we were discussing this, and I would love for him to tell you as to why we went with Skyview, okay? And I honestly, even though I just said Capital in my own head, like, I can see this, and I see Ty's point. So I have no problem with this. We were coming together as a unit here. But Ty, explain to us the reasoning, even after 2 losses, why you would put Skyview ahead of Capital at this point in the season.
Right. So, and we touched on this last week as well. So Skyview and Capital don't have a head-to-head matchup, so you can't go off of, well, who played who won, right? So what we kind of did was go off of, well, how does each team perform against Meridian, right? So Capital 3 weeks ago, they play at home, Donald Larson Park. They host Meridian. Probably their worst outing of the season. We caught them on their worst day, sure, but they lose 35-0. There was no fight, really no competition for Meridian that night. Now you look at what Skyview did this past Friday night against Meridian, 15-7 game, came down to the very last play. Avery Downey was out for Capital. We talked about that. Aiden Martinez has been out for Skyview. We talked about that. To me, the loss of Martinez, AJ, you would agree, a bigger loss than Downey is for Capital. Now, a 15-7 score compared to a 35-0 score, that just speaks volumes to me. We've seen this fight from Skyview. I mean, they put up 21 on Rocky. I know they didn't control that game by any means, but they showed their fight. And I just don't know if Capital has that fight, truthfully. And the sample size that we've seen, they proved that they did not. So that's our justification for that. Anything you guys want to touch on with that?
I do. Hold on. I want to speak to the leadership and echo Ty's point there. From the small sample size, and I love that you said that, the small sample size that we've been able to catch these teams live. Skyview has leadership, and they have the grit and determination and the mental side of the game that you want in a team. Sometimes it comes down to execution and so forth, but even when they're down, you don't ever feel like they're out because they have the leadership on their sideline to continue moving forward. Skyview does. What we saw when Capital lost to Meridian, when they got punched in the mouth and things started going south, the guys who we talked about this already, the guys who we thought were going to be leaders and step up on that team were the ones that were hanging their heads, staying quiet or complaining, one of the two, on the sideline, and nothing was going well, which dominoes into everything else. You had to have the coaches trying to, pump you up and stuff on the sideline. Now, Capital can change that. I'm sure that was a wake-up call for them. That doesn't mean they can't change that in the weeks to come before you get ready for playoff time, especially like this upcoming game this week, right? They can change that. But what we've seen consistently throughout the whole season, and I know Ty and AJ are huge on Skyview, is this leadership that they have. And they have this grit, this determination, this mental fortitude to keep fighting. They're fighters. They don't give up even when they're down, and they might come out with an L on the record. They still fight till the very end, to where Ty's point earlier, Meridian, their players were even saying, man, they're good. Like we escaped with that one kind of thing. So that's what I wanted to touch base on. AJ, go at it.
No, I mean, you guys have pretty much touched on all of it. I think we're going to find out this Friday about Capital with our game of the week, Capital at Mountain View, both those, and we'll touch on that. Both those teams are tied for first in their division. And we will see how much Capital learned from that Meridian game. But you're right. We have no reason to think that leadership that's needed is present. We haven't seen it yet. We need to see it. We can have our opinion on who we think that should be and whatnot. And leadership, isn't yelling at each other and demeaning each other. It's lifting each other up and staying positive with each other and trying to figure out how to get your guys to give that extra effort when things aren't going well. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can do that. Skyview clearly has that. They got down 20-0 to Rocky in the first quarter, like we've talked about. And then halfway through the third, it was 35-21. So they had cut into the league through 2 quarters with Rocky. So that's there. That fight, that's what we mean by that fight is there. Both these teams have really interesting games this week that we will touch on here in a minute. Skyview is home against Eagle, and then Capital is at Mountain View. So we'll talk a little bit more about that there. But yeah, I like Skyview ahead of Capital until Capital proves it, because the only game they've really had that has pushed them off a cliff. So we'll have to see how that goes.
There was a moment directly after the final whistle of the Meridian Skyview game, and as Max Cutforth and his receivers are walking off, his receivers come up to him and just kind of put their arms around each other and kept their heads high, and you could just tell that they lost, right? But they weren't defeated, and that, I mean, spoke volumes to me. I was out there taking pictures, got some good pictures of that moment. One of those moments, kind of like the Benson to Donovan Jones drive 2 weeks ago, just those ones that are sticking out to me throughout the season. And even in defeat, these guys were together, and I loved seeing it.
Baller. Guys, that's where our debate was mainly at. However, I would like to say, I might have even had the Bora Timberline, right? I might not have changed that on there. But Bora's making their way up the rankings too, showing some impressive improvements throughout the season. So we got to give a shout out to Bora as well. Parker Rushton doing his thing over there. They're doing their thing to try to make their way up the rankings. Now, are they in the top 5, 6? No. But I do think that they've got some fight in them and are improving drastically from where they were at maybe at the beginning of the season. Timberline, I still after watching them the other day, they've got weapons, they've got athletes across the field, but when they were broke against Eagle, they were broke. They started making mental mistakes, those simple things like jumping off sides when you know that there's going to be a hard count on that one on a 4th and 2, you can't jump off sides, and they call the timeout, come right out there, pivotal point in the game, and they jumped off sides right after a timeout, after their coach probably told them 5 million times don't jump off sides. That's what Timberline showed me. They were getting broke, but they're still a solid team too. They've got some weapons out there that are fun to watch. Some solid receivers, a great ground game, good athletes. But at the bottom half of what we have here, we got Centennial, Kuna, and Owyhee. Obviously, Owyhee is this young team. We've talked about them before. We don't want to down on these teams. They're fighting through a season where a lot of these teams have missing pieces, and they're trying to build their cultures and so forth with Centennial, Kuna, and Owyhee. And unfortunately, they're going against some dogs in the SIC. But we don't want to dog on these guys. They are doing their best. They're learning. They're progressing. And hopefully this week we'll be able to catch even, Owyhee going out there. And there will be a good matchup with the Centennial Kuna game coming up too. So as we go forward with this game of the week coming up this week, we got Capital and Mountain View. And we've talked about it. This is where it's going to be fun to kind of see Capital's first true test since Meridian. And this is on Mountain View senior night. So some would say they're going into a slaughterhouse. And I'm just going to say it. That's what some people would say, Capital's going into a slaughterhouse. I'm not going to call names out either, but there's been guys who, have mentioned something about Capital that have said stuff to the point of their best players play both ways. By the end of the season, they're going to be tired. So we'll see. We'll see how Capital does going in here. But I want AJ's thoughts. And then we'll go to Ty, because Ty and I will be at that game. AJ will be at the Skyview game covering that one. But as Capital comes into Mountain View on Mountain View senior night, as Mountain View looks to remain undefeated, what are your expectations?
If Capital wins this game somehow, some way, they take sole possession of first place in that division, which we will touch on in the near future. But going into Mountain View, their senior night, after what we saw once again from Capital when they played Meridian, I'm expecting a blowout. I'll say that. I think it's going to be more 3 to 4 touchdowns. I don't think it's going to be 52-7. I think it'll be maybe 42-21 or 42-14, something like that. I think that I know that Capital's got 3 of the top, I think 6 sat getters in the SIC, in Summers, French, and Mr. Walk, who leads the league. I believe those are the 3. That might be wrong, but so they're good at getting to the quarterback. That's not really what Mountain View has to worry about. I think Capital more has to worry about how are we going to get to Quintez Evans? Can we get a hand on him before he gets 4 or 5 yards down the field? I think Quintez Evans is going to have a huge game. They're going to have to bring up Cherry and Downey from the safety positions and try to make plays there. You've got to make Dawson Wall beat you. Dawson Wall is progressing. Sotomayor is starting to come along as one of the top receivers in the SIC. So their passing game is making strides. But I think this is a game that Quintez Evans potentially could jump back in the lead for, or jump back up and make a case for himself as one of the top rushers. I think he's 2 or 3 right now, but he has an opportunity in this game because I think he's probably going to play the entire game. I think it'll be closer early, but I think Mountain View will extend the lead as we get into the third quarter and whatnot. But I don't know if Capital can stop that offensive line and Quintez Evans, but I do like the dogs up front for Capital. Cody Walk's going to have to maybe have his best game of the year, and that's saying something because he's had some monster games. French is going to have to continue to play well, and that secondary is going to have to come up and make some plays in Downey and Cherry, and Kovac's going to have to play well. They've got a lot of guys on that defensive side of the ball that can do some things, but it's just crazy how much chemistry and leadership matters, especially against the best teams in the league. And so if they can come together as a unit and play together as a unit, I think the Capital defense can really play with anybody from an athletic standpoint. But yeah, I think Mountain View at home, senior night, very senior loaded defense. Shout out Jackson Beck and Garrett McKenna. They're both in the top 10 for sacks in the league as well. We've touched on Garrison, Mason Childs is a junior, but they've got a lot of playmakers. That secondary, I'm not sure if Whipple's back yet, but once Aiden Whipple gets back, he's going to even make them better, which is crazy because I think defensively they may be the top team in the league. But I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to see if Capital can respond like I just talked about. And I'm actually curious to hear what Mr. Spangenberg has to say about this game because he's extremely familiar with Capital and Mountain View. So Ty, I'm curious what you have to say.
Yeah, so I like that you brought up Aiden Whipple. Actually, last I had heard, he probably won't be back until the playoffs. But
wow.
If there was a time, because I think that he's able to play, they're just letting it heal from what I was told. If there was a time for him to maybe make an introductory this season, I think that this is a perfect time for it. For me, this game very well could be a blowout. But I also kind of think it could be a trap game for Mountain View. And the reason I say that, just Capital's ability to move the ball through the air. If provided time, they're going to go make plays no matter what. And now I'm looking, you look at Mountain View's secondary. A lot of good playmakers, Rylan Elliott, Hank Wemoff. I think Elliott didn't play last week. I didn't get any stats sent in from him. So they need him in that secondary. But you look at the secondary, Hank's got some size to him, but who's going to match up against Cody Walk? Who's going to match up against Ethan Castillo? If Capital can move the ball, and they're going to need Jacob Olsen in the lineup, I don't know his health status right now, but they're going to need to move the ball on the ground and through the air to make this happen. But if they're able to get that balanced approach and they're able to get it to their playmakers, they have some mismatches, in my opinion, from a size standpoint specifically, that could give Mountain View a really hard time. But again, they need that offensive line to provide Max with some protection. So it's going to be tough for Capital to go in there and get a win. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. You guys have mentioned matchups several times throughout the season. That kind of makes high school football, right? Any given Friday night, if the matchup's in your favor, I don't think it's completely in their favor, but they do have some options. So I'm curious to see what Capital can do. They need their leaders to step up, like we've talked about. That Mountain View defense, Mountain View offensive line, they're gonna give Capital a hard time though, and I don't see an upset happening, but who knows?
So I have a question. This is the second to last week of the season, correct? Before playoffs?
Yeah.
Okay, so the winner of this game locks up that division and is the 1 seed and goes to the district championship then, because neither of them have lost in their division, and whoever wins this game, even if they go and lose, I think this is winner goes to the district championship game. This is actually a much bigger game than I think people realize.
Yeah, you're right on that, AJ, by the way.
Yeah,
you are.
This is a huge game to see who's going to win the SIC. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, so that'll have direct implications on the River Conference out of the SIC. There's the Foothills, which is Rocky, Eagle, Meridian, Skyview, Boise, Timberline, and then there's the River, which is Mountain View, Capital, Bora, Kuna, Centennial, Owyhee. So that will have a direct implication on what happens for that particular division or that conference, I guess, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be huge. And what I wanted to touch base on real quick, I got to shut that other tab off because it's lagging a little bit. But what I wanted to touch base on was Capitals pass game when they are rolling. The one game I've got to get it out of my head. That Meridian game was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. But when they're rolling, a lot of their catches are they're short catches and they get yards after the catch. So you've got guys coming on crossing routes. You've got a lot of movement within the first 5 to 10 yards of the field. And Cody Walk's a big part of that. I mean, you're going to get guys.
Or you have him throwing up high to his tall receivers, and they're just going up and making a play.
That is true, too. And there was a couple times, even in that Meridian game, if you remember, there were 2 drops that were like dimes that Clark threw across the middle up to his guys. So, like, he can make those passes that are long, but he does a lot of these shorter passes that, they get the yards after the catch. Like, it's crazy. They're really good at that, which puts the pressure on Garrison, which was this week's player of the week. Those linebackers in the middle of the field for Mountain View, like these guys are going to have to make tackles. That's what we thought about Meridian too. We said, hey, your linebackers are going to have to make tackles in open space and eliminate those additional yards. Can they do it? Absolutely. But I think that's what's going to potentially be the game breaker right there if Capital can stay in it with Mountain View. I just think it's going to be interesting. I actually think it could be pretty close. I think that if Capital's rolling on their game, they'll be all right. Now, here's the other thing. If I'm Capital on the defensive side of the ball, I'm not a coach, so take it for what it's worth. But I don't know why all these teams, we already know this, like they're going to be running it. It's a run-heavy scheme. Single high safety, stack the box with 7 guys. I think you're okay. And then you let Dawson Wall beat you over the top. If you got it, you force him to do that. And that's no disrespect to them, but their game is run heavy, and that's where their success has come. So single high safety, stack the box with 7 guys. And I think it's easier said than done, obviously, especially if your scheme is not that way. If your scheme is 2 high safeties, it's a little bit different. But maybe this would be the time to change up your scheme a little bit. That's just what I got to say on that. But this week's going to be really fun. Ty will be there, our professional photographer, Ty Spangenberg from Boise Sports Talk. We'll be taking some photos, getting us some social media coverage. I'll also be there helping out and trying to get some, obviously Instagram coverage, and we'll be getting some stuff over for the Twitter side of things too. Now, let's get to our weekly breakdown because we want to hear about the games that we'll all be at. Well, obviously, Ty and I will be at the game of the week, but we also want to hear about some of the other ones. AJ, where are you going to be? Where can people find you? And let's talk about your picks for the week as well.
All right. So I really want to see my guys from Eagle play again. And they're on the road at Skyview. And I'm a Skyview fanboy. And I think, Ty, you got to see firsthand why. They're just a different group of kids, different edge, real positive kids, a lot of fun to be around that Skyview community. Been covering the volleyball team as well. Shout out to the number 15 team in the country, number 1 in the state.
I watched their soccer team last night. While they lost, they still just embodied that feeling. Florentino Gallivan, goalie for them, kicker for the football team. He brought that energy from the football field to the soccer field for sure. Fun to watch.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm going to be at the Skyview game against Eagle. I'm excited to see my boys from Eagle play. Obviously, always excited to see Skyview play. So that's where I'm going to be hanging out probably for all 4 quarters. I think that's going to be a pretty good game. I will come back to that one. But as for my picks, Rocky Timberline. Initially, I get excited about this game. Because I like the athletes on Timberline's side, and I'm extremely high on Rocky after seeing them play in person, actually at Skyview for a half a couple weeks back. And man, I got Rocky winning this game by 3-4 touchdowns. But I like when guys like Taylor Markham, who's a Division I football player, get to go up against a bunch of other guys who are going to be Division I football players, and Mason Jacobson and Gage Tanner, those type of guys. So I'm excited to see what happens in that game. Hopefully we can get some highlights sent over to us from that game. But I got Rocky Mountain in that game. Capital Mountain View, I'll touch on in a minute. Boise versus Meridian. Shout out to my boy, and you guys know how close I am with this kid, Corbin Meisner, and his boys up front there. Ty touched on it, played extremely well after the touchdown against Skyview. Meisner had, I think, his best game of the year. I save all his highlights because that's my boy. He had a huge sack at the end of the game. Pinkerman. Those guys, I think, are going to be too much for Boise. They're going to get to the quarterback. I know that the linebackers in the secondary from Meridian are excited about this game. Boise's going to throw it 50 times. As a defense, you're excited about that. You know what's coming. Boise doesn't run the ball, so let's get ready to make some plays. So I got Meridian winning that game big. I think that's going to be a 4-touchdown game as well. I think there's going to be a lot of highlights, a lot of big hits in that game. So stay tuned for that. Get us those highlights. Centennial versus CUNA, I think, is going to be a great football game. We got to watch CUNA last Thursday at Bora. They lost to Bora. It was a great game, 3-point game. CUNA can sling the ball around, and they got Brayden White, Luke Snar, Luke Celto, Gus Austin. They got a lot of guys that can make plays and are weapons. Snar is a top 5 receiver right now. I think White's in the top 6, and he's a playmaker. So I got CUNA winning that game against Centennial. I think it's going to be close. I think it'll be a touchdown or so, but I think CUNA is just the better team. They're more organized and maybe a little bit tougher. I just don't see Centennial winning another game this year. So I got CUNA in that one. Bora Owyhee Thursday night. I'm trying to, coordinate getting out there with BST. I think is going to try to get out there as well. But I got Bora. I got Parker Rushton, who is now our rushing leader after another 180-plus yard game. So he's gone 250-plus the 2 weeks prior to this one, and then he went 182 this week. He's an absolute man-child. I'm calling him the problem child. I'm not going to stop calling him that. He's a beast. I think he's going to go for another 180 to 200 at least and build that lead against Owyhee. This will be their 4th straight win if they win this game. Part of me thinks Owyhee can come in, and Owyhee believes they can win this game, and this would be a game that I think if they're going to get a win, this would have to be it. I know it's on the road, like most of their games are, but I think Owyhee's going to bring an extra effort. I think it's going to be a pretty good football game, actually, at least for a little while. And who knows what's going to happen. Thursday night football can be crazy, but I got Bora winning that game by 14, 17 points, somewhere in there. I'm excited about that one. I'll talk about Skyview Skyview Eagle, the game I'm going to be at. Wow. I have been telling you guys, I think I'm going to go with Skyview. And hearing from you, Guru, about how Eagle started last game against Timberline, not really being able to throw the ball. If Eagle doesn't if their passing game is not above average, they won't win this game. Donovan Jones didn't have a huge game. I think he will have a huge game this game. He's going to be a big problem for Skyview. He's number 11 on the receiving chart right now. I think he's still like 1 or 2 when it comes to mismatch and the type of weapon he is. But I think Skyview has lost 2 straight. I think they've got a different level of toughness than most of these teams have. Not all of them, but most of them. They're at home. Eagle can't stop the run very well. They're middle of the pack, lower end, and stopping the run. Fafita just got held to 26 yards. I think he's going to have a big game like he did against Rocky at home. He's comfortable there. He's a beast. I don't know if he can control the game and they can control the clock and not try to have a shootout with Eagle. I think Skyview can win this football game. I think Skyview's front 7 is good enough to slow down that run game and match that offensive line of Eagle that's been playing so well. This is the game where I think a Makita or even a Deegan Martino is a little bit more essential with their ability to break off big plays. I don't know enough about Roy Hull. I know he's been great and he's a baller. I don't know enough about his big play ability. I hear he's a little bit more of a power back. And I'm kind of just rambling about this game because I still don't know who I'm going to pick, but I'm going to go ahead because me and Boise Sports Talk are tied at the top. And I think Boise Sports Talk is going to go with Eagle. And I'm an Eagle fan when it comes to the kids, and I want them to be successful. And if they were to win state, I would be ecstatic and I would celebrate with those guys. But I'm going with Skyview. I'm going to pick Skyview in this game in the upset. I don't see Skyview losing 3 games straight. Maybe they will. Aiden Martinez not being there could be the difference because I think Eagle has the potential to pass it all over them and win this game big. But I'm going to go with the toughness of Skyview. I think Eagles got to come in and play very well, play a very good game to win this game. So I'm going to go with Skyview. And then game of the week, Capital Mountain View. Guru, you were saying it. Pressure's on Brayden, Garrison, and those boys to make plays. They will make plays. They want to make plays. They're looking forward to making plays. I don't know how Capital threw for 60 yards against Meridian. I just don't know how that happened. I know Meridian's defense is top 2 or 3, maybe in the state, but 60 yards, like what happened there? Like, is it that much of a separation? Capital has to show me before I believe it. I've got Mountain View by 2, 3, maybe 4 touchdowns in this game. I hope it's a good game. I like Capital's weapons. I like what they've got going on there, but there are some glaring holes when it comes to leadership and, dealing with adversity and then, stupid penalties and all that has to be cleaned up. Has that been cleaned up enough in the last couple of weeks to go into Mountain View, who's maybe the number 1 team in the state on senior night, to beat them? I don't think so. So I'm gonna go with Mountain View in that game.
Nice. All right. So here you got it from EBC, which we're all representing for. By the way, I was the last one.
Appreciate you guys, bro. Come on.
I had to go get my sweatshirt out of the dryer because I used it during my workout the other day, but I got it because Ty decided to put it on late, and that's what we do. So Ty, we heard AJ's picks. Are you going to make any ground on him? Are you going to separate from the pack, or are you guys going to stay pretty much consistent? Because I'm about to blow you guys out of the water this week. You guys are playing. You're very conservative in your picks. You're playing not to lose, and I'm trying to play to win, which means I take risks.
Pick Centennial then. Pick Centennial then.
I'm just kidding. Okay, go ahead, Ty. You choose yours first.
Yeah, it might get a little interesting this week for sure. Up first, Rocky Timberline. 3 touchdown, 4 touchdown, maybe 5 touchdown win for Rocky in this one. Timberline's got some playmakers, but they haven't had the execution that they've needed. Rocky's going to capitalize on that and continue to do what they've done offensively. I expect, maybe 2-3 touchdown performance from CJ Jacobson. He got his first touchdown of the season. Big ups to him. The freshman Isaiah Reed also got a touchdown. Got to watch him play for Triple Threat Academy this past spring. Super fun player, talented hooper as well. We're going to hear a lot about Isaiah Reed. Up next, we've got Boise at Meridian. Oh boy, Ninja Turtles. They're going to have some fun. They are going to have some fun. Meridian this is going to be a big game for them. I think we see a 350-yard game from Zeke this week. I don't think we're going to see Malakai till the playoffs from the sounds of it. So I think big outing from Zeke. He's going to continue to climb the leaderboards, and they're just going to have some fun with it, I believe, this Friday night. So Meridian big in that one. Centennial Cuna. I liked what I saw from Cuna this past week against Bora. I think Lucas Snar legitimately is a top 5 to top 10 receiver in the entire SIC already. He's only going to, bulk up physically. He's got good size already, but moves well, has good hands, finds a soft spot in the zones, and he's a talented player. I think Cuna has a lot of fight to him. They tackle really well. I kept saying it the entire Bora Cuna game. Oh, Bora's going to bust off a big one here. They're going to bust off a big one, but they just never did. And that's a testament to Cuna's physicality and their ability to tackle well. So I like their trend right now rather than Centennials, who they started the year running the ball really well, and they've really fallen off in that regard. Kyle Shabbat has done well receiving. He's made his way onto the leaderboards into the top 20 now, but they haven't been in sync. Nobody's really stepping up defensively either. Youngster Fabrice, how we say his last name?
Latorum.
So he started off well, kind of falling off a little. Brad Ames, would like to see him step back up. They need a leader, and I think Cuna has those leaders. I think that they take care of business this week. Could be a very close game, but Centennial needs to get creative offensively for sure. And Keon Horton needs to have an efficient outing. He's had some problem with interceptions, so need to have a clean game from Centennial to have a chance, but I think Cuna takes that one. Looking at Eagle Skyview, where it gets real fun. You are correct. I'm going to go with Eagle. But they need, like you said, they need a Deegan Martino. They need an Ethan Makita. This game, they're not going to just run it up the middle and find success. I think Skyview's front seven, arguably top 3 or 4 in the SIC. Again, I'm going to call it. Benson needs to sling it on these guys, and I think that they'll have the ability to, but they need a third pass catcher to step up. Duarte and Jones have both done their thing. Jones had a quiet game. It sounds like Timberline did a good job of bottling him up this past week. But they need another guy to be out there catching passes. So somebody's got to step up for them. Hopefully they get Martino back and he can be that guy. But I think Eagles' ability to move the ball is going to outweigh Skyview's kind of rush heavy, pound you down style. We saw 3 picks from Max Cup for this week. I don't think that that's a direct reflection of the game that he played. I think he played a pretty solid game. One of those interceptions was deflected, so you can't totally fault him for that. But he needs to continue to elevate. They have a very strong chance of winning this game, and you might steal this pick from me here this week. But I got to go with Eagles. You know, they got 2 impressive wins the last 2 weeks, and I think they're an upward trending team that's going to continue to do so. Last game of the week. Go Mavs.
Simply put.
Simply put.
That was an easier one for you. As I was looking here, I'll go through my picks pretty quick here as I'm trying to make ground on these guys, but I don't think I'm going to this week. You know, starting with Rocky versus Timberline. Rocky's putting up 40 points a game, 39.6 points per game. That is ridiculous, dude. That's second to Mountain View, who's putting up 39.8. So they're right up there, putting up 40 points a game, only giving up 16. Rocky is on fire. They're going to win. Like Ty said, I'm going with 4 touchdown victory. I think Timberline, they're putting up over 30 points a game, but I don't think they're going to be they haven't matched up with a defense like this. They're going to struggle immensely to put up points on the board. In my opinion, I love their weapons. I love the guys over at Timberline. I thought they were impressive, but when Eagles defense locked in on them, they got shut down. I mean, they were getting worn out. And so I expect the same from Rocky. Rocky will pull away with that one, 4 touchdowns or more. Boise versus Meridian. I think Meridian wins that by 2 touchdowns. Now, I think it's just not, for some reason, I don't know, like we haven't made a big enough deal, but Zeke Martinez, like he's a freshman. I hope everybody who's listening to this understands, like this is such a crazy storyline that just kind of just flying through. Like we've talked about it. Yeah, he's a freshman. We did a post on him. Like how crazy is that? The Meridian's as good as they are with a freshman quarterback coming in. Not to mention the younger brother. Like it's just super cool, the storyline with this Meridian squad. But Meridian knows they need this win because as we'll go into the playoff discussion for week 9 at another time in a different episode. But this is vital that Meridian wins this game before the Rocky matchup because they have to have this win if they hope to make a push for the 1st or 2nd seed in that bracket because of their loss to Eagle, the way that it breaks itself down. So Meridian has to win this game. I do see them winning by 2 or 3 touchdowns in that one against Boise. But, yeah, it's going to be vital for the seedings for the Foothills Conference. Going into Centennial versus CUNA, I thought about it for a minute, guys, taking Centennial. AJ was trying to challenge me to take Centennial. I just can't do it. They're broken. They are broke, and that's what happens. They're a broken team. And CUNA, from what I have seen, I loved everything that you guys said. I'm just going to echo everything that you guys said. They've got weapons, and I think that they're not a terrible team. They're not a terrible team. They've got athletes across the board, and it comes down to who's got the better athletes and who executes better and who's got the better leadership. I got CUNA in that one by 2 or more touchdowns. Okay, Bora versus Hawaii on Thursday night. I love Hawaii for the culture they're trying to build. I love their coaching staff. They're good people, but good people doesn't always mean like you're a good team right now. And that's just the reality of they're building, they're learning. I think Bora is going to run away with that one, quite literally running away with that, with Rushton taking that one. I don't know if Hawaii they can't put enough points on the board. And unfortunately, their defense at this point in the season can't stop anybody. And so Bora is going to win that one by 3 touchdowns. Okay. Skyview versus Eagle. Man, I've struggled with this one as you guys were talking. I'm looking into it. I'm like, what do I do? I've got to make ground on somebody. But having seen, it's just tough for me because Skyview's got that toughness about them. They've got it. They don't stop. that doesn't necessarily mean they win games. Like, toughness is awesome. It's great. And I love the guys over there, but they haven't won the game. And I think Eagle has figured out how to win these tough games, like one against Meridian, right? That was a big game that they needed to win, and they figured out a way to get it done. It might've been sloppy, but they figured out a way to get that done. I think Eagle takes this one. And I think it's going to be by 2 touchdowns. And I don't know. And there's something to me too. Like, I think Skyview still has grass, right, AJ? They still have grass field. Yeah. Oh, you're muted or something. I don't know, but yeah, you are muted. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, my kid was crying. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's a really cool field. It's like the fans are on top. It's grass.
Isn't it right by the street? Like the street's right there, right? Yeah, it's like yeah. You can drive by it and watch. Like, that's where it's at. I remember I've only been there once to watch a game when I was in high school, but they still have a grass field, and I think that's a little understated. Not many people talk about that. Most of these schools around here have these turf fields, which is huge for speed. If you have athletes, it is actually huge for speed. You can ask anybody that it makes a big difference with your speed on the field and like your grip and whatnot. Grass fields tend to slow you down. So if you have some speed on the field, it does kind of help slow things down. And I think that plays to Skyview's advantage. They're a physical team. They're going to get after you and wear you down. But I still think Eagle wins this one by 2 touchdowns. Now, Capital versus Mountain View. I want to say Capital's going to come out there and be able to make the upset. I just don't see it happening. I think Mountain View, they're putting up so many points. They're flying under, like, just doing their thing. I mean, their defense is stout. And what the difference was with Capital and Meridian, the reason they only threw for 60 whatever yards was because Meridian's front line got to Clark. He was rolling out. They were trying to get him to roll out, and they were getting the pressure on him. And so even when he made his short passes, they also made the tackles when they needed to make the tackles in open space. They group tackle, boom. They got pressure on Clark, making him throw tough passes. The run game wasn't getting there. I think Mountain View's defensive front, their front 7 is just as good as Meridian's, if not better by far. Like, I mean, I think they're stellar. I don't see that changing. I think Capital will struggle in that game, and I see Mountain View winning that by 2 or 3 touchdowns as well. All right, so with that being said, we're going to go to our lightning round with Austin Bolt. So we'll go to a break for that real quick so you guys can hear what Bolt has to say this week. I'm trying to break away from Bolt so you guys can't call us Bolt 1 and Bolt 2. So hopefully we'll see what he has to say and see if we break away. And here we are.
Okay, for the first pick, I got Bora against Hawaii. Bora, of course. We got Eagle at Skyview. I'm taking Eagle. We got Capital at Mountain View. I'm going with Mountain View. We got Boise at Meridian. I'm taking Meridian. We got Rocky and Timberline. I'm taking Rocky. And then Centennial and Kuna. I'm going with Kuna, actually.
No way, Austin Bolt. What? No way.
All right, there you have it, guys. There's Austin's pick.
Hey, so since he picked Bora again, that brings me to my point. I actually didn't make a pick on that game, but I do have the heavy hitters from Bora. You know, Trace Freeman, Loudon Hudson coming in making big hits this week. They're gonna put the hurt on Hawaii. So thanks for the reminder, Austin.
Bolt, the homer. We gotta love him. Thanks for reminding Ty, our professional photographer. Guys, we are so happy to be here with you guys today and chat with you guys on this podcast and be able to provide this coverage. This is the dream job for all of us. We all love what we're doing. We appreciate it. So follow us here on the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and share it with all your friends that are out there that want this coverage for Idaho high school sports. Then follow us on Instagram and Twitter right now as we provide you this coverage daily for the SIC right now, and it will continue to expand. So on behalf of Ty from Boise Sports Talk, AJ from EBC Media, myself, Shane from the Game Time Guru, this is Gym Session. We are the Idaho Underground Sports Network. We're signing off. Take care.